Hello YouTube, and welcome to what I believe is part 6 of the Book of Five Rings. We are halfway through the book, but we're actually almost done. I believe there's only going to be a part 7 and part 8, and then we're going to move to a different piece of literature related to Bushido style and Japanese samurais. But for now, let's dive back into the words of Miyamoto and learn from him and his wisdom. He says, in the first place, people think narrowly about the benefits of strategy. By only using their fingertips, they know the benefit of 3 of the 5 inches of the wrist. What is strategy for us? Strategy for us is going to be programming, is going to be technique, and all of that good stuff. The truth of the matter is, the mental capacities you develop lifting are going to have an influence on your life. Personally, I built my discipline, training every day, and it made me a better person outside of the gym too, because those qualities translate. This is why the people who tell you they don't lift because they're more focused on developing their intellectual abilities are misguided, because building a strong body is going to help you to build a stronger spirit, and vice versa. They go hand in hand. There is no point in only training the mind, because truth of the matter is, you can only train the mind so much, and it's the same for the body. There is no point in training 10 hours a day and never reading a book or never thinking about things, because even that is not balanced for training. You're not going to make proper gains doing that. You need the alliance of the body and the spirit together. What does he mean by saying that by using only their fingertips, they only know the benefit of 3 of the 5 inches of the wrist? Again, it's a very, it's not a transparent metaphor at all. But what I understand from that is, again, with Musashi, he likes the idea of the bigger picture and the small picture. And here, he says that if you only use the fingertips, then you completely ignore the fact that the rest of the hand is also moving, which is what is making the fingertips move. So by ignoring strategy in all things in life, you're not realizing the impact that it has on it. He also says, any man who wants to master the essence of my strategy must research diligently, training morning and evening. Thus can he polish his skill, become free from self, and realize extraordinary ability. He will come to possess miraculous power. If you think about it, his strategy, in a sense, is not just the theories he puts in his book. In reality, he speaks about becoming a warrior and developing the warrior spirit. And for me, you cannot be a warrior if you do not train. This is why the theory-only aspect of fitness and training is boring to me. Because all of that stuff, all of those studies, all of that writing, all of those theories are completely worthless if they're not applied. And I believe that even within oneself, if you only worry about the theory but you never do it with your body, then it's a waste of time. You should strive to do both, to think about the way of strategy and to also apply it in real life. Become free from self. What is self? Self is you, right? But more than that, self is the image you have of you. Why is self so important in today's society and it was in the past and it will be in the future? Because your self is what people see. This is why we worry so much about our appearance. It's because this is what we present to the world. That's something you can never go without. But it becomes a problem when that self becomes your identity. When that self replaces your soul. Because you start living for others. You start living for the image that you give others. And you quit pursuing the path because you have that new occupation that involves making sure that people always like you, that you're always falling in the ranks, that you're always going to be hip with the moment that people regard you in a beneficial light, keep in mind that if these people are maleficent or they are evil, you're going to become that as well because you're trying to follow that. So you need to have that sense of integrity so that no matter which crowd you're surrounded with, what word you're put into, you stay true to yourself. So that's what becoming free of self is, in a sense, is not worrying so much about training for others. Do what makes you happy. And do what makes you truly happy. Because there are a gazillion examples of people who say, oh, I live for myself. But the truth of the matter is they're insecure. They're still insecure. Once you find your calling, you will not be insecure anymore because what other people think about what you do is not going to affect you. And by that, Musashi says that you will realize extraordinary abilities, you will come to possess miraculous powers. We're not talking about the ability to breathe fire or fly here. We're talking about a control of the mind that is so strong that you have a discipline that cannot be broken. For many people, that is miraculous. When I tell people I train every day, even when I first started in high school, people didn't understand me. Close friends of me wanted me to just hang out or do things like this, and I would, but at some point I knew it was time to go home and train. And it was a foreign concept to them that I would do something like this with no monetary reward, something painful and grueling, especially because at the time I was still very skinny. So I was asked, why do you even train? You're not even getting muscle from that. Truth of the matter is I didn't know at the time that I was eventually going to get bigger. With time, I was just slower than what most people would experience as far as progress. But the spirit and the strength of mind I developed back then made up for it. This is my miraculous power. It's the power of discipline. And it's a power that can be developed by everyone. You just have to train, that's it. After that, he goes and he talks about fighting principles because the fire book is mostly focused on that. And a lot of them are very interesting, but the truth is they're sword fencing techniques, so I cannot get much from that. But he does mention some wisdom when it comes to how to approach life, and he always uses metaphors, of course, but I selected a few that I think can apply to us as well. There is such a thing as crossing at a ford. And Musashi explains that crossing at a ford means, for example, crossing the sea at a strait or crossing over 100 miles of broad sea at a crossing place. I believe this crossing at the ford occurs often in man's lifetime. It means setting sail even though your friends stay in harbor, knowing the route, knowing the soundness of your ship, and the favor of the day. To rebound off what I said before, setting sail even though your friends stay in harbor is going to be a principle that you're going to have to apply in your life. Because if you're truly dedicated and you have a vision and a goal, you're going to be surrounded by people who either do not share that goal, do not understand that goal, or they do get it, but they don't really want you to achieve it. Sadly, a lot of people, it's the mentality of crabs in the bucket. They are fine having a mediocre life as long as no one around them manages to make something great out of their life. Because if they're surrounded only by mediocrity, then their mediocrity is average, they're normal. But if someone makes it, it slashes all of the excuses they gave themselves for the reason why they're so pathetic. You're going to see that a lot in the real world outside of lifting, outside of this book. This is sadly a mentality that is quite pervasive. He also says that you set sail knowing the route, so you know where you're going. You might not know exactly how to get there, but you know the goal, and that's all that matters, because the truth of the matter is you will discover the path as you go. But if you just engage on it and you don't have a clear idea of what you want at the end, how can you even stay on the path? It's very complicated. Knowing the soundness of your ship and the favor of the day. Your ship is, of course, you. Ship is both body and mind. You need to know how your body responds to exercise, to training, to movement, to technique, to form, because it's going to prevent injury, it's going to keep you lifting for a long time. And the favor of the day, sometimes on a certain day you're going to feel really good, sometimes you're going to feel really bad. You need the adaptability to be able to navigate your program so that you do the maximum of what you can do every day without overreaching. He continues, when all the conditions are met and there is perhaps a favorable wind or a tailwind, then set sail. If the wind changes within a few miles of your destination, you must row across the remaining distance without sail. If you attain this spirit, it applies to everyday life. You must always think of crossing at a ford. If I tell you crossing at a ford, what do you picture? In my mind, I picture a very strong river. A river that is so strong that I know if I cross it, I will be taken by it and killed and drowned. So what happens when you want to cross that river? You look for a ford. You look for a place where the river is weak enough so that you can apply your own strength and cross. And the truth is that your goal or your ideal is not on the other side of the river. It's on the other side of 10,000 rivers. And the rivers represent life and its hardships. You constantly are going to have to cross rivers in your life. And if you always go and charge full force without thinking, you're going to suffer a lot of defeats, some that might even be so detrimental that they're going to stop you forever attempting to cross again. But if you always try to cross at a ford, it's going to boost your ability to keep crossing rivers for the rest of your life. So for example, a favorable wind is going to be an opportunity that you see in your life that is going to be a very favorable moment for you to try and cross that river. But if it's the opposite, if you have a wind that is preventing you from advancing further, then it might be a good idea to either turn back and find another way to cross, or to just stay stationary and not try to fight the wind. If the wind changes though, and you're very close, you must row. What does that mean? There's a very famous motivational quote that says, if there is no wind, row. It means that you will not always have the favor of the skies. You will not always have everything fall into place for you. But if your goal is within reach, and if the only difference between defeat and victory is effort, then you should put in the effort. You should row. Of course, crossing the entire river, rowing is not smart because you're going to exhaust yourself. If you attain the spirit, it applies to everyday life. It does. It really does. As of training, this is a really good advice to give. After that, another strategy that I really liked and I wanted to share with you guys is everything can collapse. House, bodies, enemies collapse when their rhythm becomes deranged. The idea of the rhythm is something that I will eventually make a full-scale video on in terms of sports, because it applies to bodybuilding as well. Rhythm is not speed, rhythm is not strength. Rhythm exists outside of these two notions. Anyone who played football understands that very well. You can have a receiver that is not the fastest guy. He doesn't have the best vertical. He's not super strong, so he's not able to run through the bumps. But if he has a good rhythm on his routes, he is a receiver that will always be favored by the quarterback, because you will always know where he is on the field, and you will know that if you throw on his route, he will catch the ball. These receivers are usually have a very good rhythm because they're able to follow the rhythm of the ball and of the throw. A cornerback that will be able to counter that is not necessarily going to be the fastest. He's going to be the guy who's on rhythm, who can match the rhythm of that guy. When the rhythm gets disturbed, you lose. It's true for martial arts. You can face someone that's slower than you, but if they read your rhythm, you eat a counter and you're down. And as far as bodybuilding, I think that this represents, in my opinion, the ability to stay disciplined and focused, of course, but to have in your program a rhythm that carries you and helps you progress. Something that is going to snap your rhythm is breaking something, hurting a tendon, that disturbs your rhythm. Events in your life can also disturb your rhythm. All of these things need to be avoided, but when they happen, they happen. And when they happen, you collapse. It's a sad truth, but it's universal. But once you understand it, you can better apprehend rhythm. I spoke about rhythm in a previous video, I think it was part 4. In single combat also, you must put yourself in the enemy's position. If you think, here is a master of the way who knows the principles of strategy, then you will sorely lose. You must consider this deeply. From what I get here, this means never overestimate people. Never think that you're facing with someone who knows better than you. This is a principle of pride too. It's good to recognize when other people are know more than you, but don't think that they mastered something so much that you could never get there. Learn from them. That's the principle of the way. If they could get there, tell yourself there's no way I cannot get there, and do your best to do so. To pass on, Musashi calls that principle. Many things are said to be passed on. Sleepiness can be passed on. Yawning can be passed on. Time can be passed on also. This is one of those very cryptic saying by Musashi that I personally don't fully understand. But what I love with this is that even back then, it's interesting to see that they already knew that yawning makes other people yawn. If you've never tried it, go in a packed place and yawn and watch how many people are going to start yawning. Science has tried and explained it by saying that when you yawn, you actually inhale a ton of oxygen, and it's a biological reaction for survival that other humans yawn as well, because they anticipate the fact that if you yawn, it means that there is potentially a lack of oxygen, and therefore they need to get their fill before there is no more to go around. But what does time can be passed on also? How would you apply that to the principle of yawning and passing that yawning to someone else? I personally don't know. But if you do, please let me know in the comments. He continues. What is known as getting someone drunk is similar to this. You can infect the enemy with a bold, careless, or weak spirit. You must study this well. This has very little to do with lifting, but I think it's interesting for everyday life. I'm going to use an example of a potential street fight or a confrontation. If you've ever been in a situation where you get approached by people, usually more than one, who are after, for example, your money, or they want something that belongs to you and they are ready to use violence to get it. I have been in many situations like this, and I've always found that if I engaged these people as if they were my friends, the situation was always deactivated before it could even start. I even managed to get some of these people to do favors for me, where, for example, I would be approached in a neighborhood I didn't know by people who wanted my phone, and I turned it around so that they actually guided me to where I wanted to go because they knew the neighborhood better. How does that happen? It's not being a mastermind, it's not manipulating people. In truth, it's what he describes. I got them drunk. So in this case, I infected their spirit with my enthusiasm and happy-go-lucky attitude, and it worked. The worst thing you can do when someone approaches you like this with a potentially aggressive demeanor is to be afraid, because they feed off of that, or to try and sweep it under the rug, like pretending like you don't know what's going on, because you give them the upper hand. you have to inject your spirit into the altercation. I don't personally advise trying to inject aggressivity into it, because you never know who you're dealing with. It might be someone who's unhinged and is going to go very far to get that phone or wallet or whatever. I would advise you to just chat with them like they're your friends. Usually that works. To cause loss of balance. Many things can cause a loss of balance. One cause is danger, another is hardship, and another is surprise. You must research this. To go back to the idea of a rhythm, what breaks your rhythm? A loss of balance. Danger, for human beings, danger can appear at any moment. And when danger arrives, the natural order of things stops existing. The only thing that exists is danger. Why? Because the species wants to survive. So we are biologically engineered and programmed to focus all of our attention on potential dangers. But by doing so, we lose our balance. Hardship is the same. What is hardship? Hardship is the discontinuation of everyday life. You're living with your family in a house and suddenly you lose your job and you cannot pay the mortgage. That's hardship. Why is it a hardship? Because what you consider to be a given, being that you would be able to pay your mortgage and live in the house with your family, suddenly does not exist anymore. He finishes by surprise, of course, surprise. Surprise is the state of a reality that is suddenly put to a stop by something that should not be existing in this reality. You go up the stairs and your kid jumps out of the corner and scares you. You never in your mind predicted that that would happen. If you did, because you knew that the kid likes to scare you, it's not a surprise anymore and you're not going to lose your balance. The loss of balance in that case would be to be scared, to be afraid, to have that jump back reaction. He tells you about these things. Why? Because if you are prepared within yourself to handle every single change of situation, then they will not affect you as much. The potential danger of that is developing anxiety, because if you're constantly thinking about, oh man, what if this happens? What if I lose my job? What if that person dies? Then you're constantly going to be worried. Just in your head, think about it once. Play the scenario in your head and say, what will I do? If I'm in the streets and someone attacks my loved one, what will I do? Once you answer that and you play the scenario in your head once, you never had to play it again, because you've taught yourself how you would react. And with this, you will never lose your balance and you will maintain your rhythm strong. And I will finish on this because it's a good place to stop. But you as a person have your own rhythm, your own sense of balance, your own spirit, etc. All of these things can be influenced by others, to the point that some people have had their entire being replaced entirely. The danger of that is that if your spirit is not aligned with your body, you are going to develop certain issues. You're going to have a general sense of sadness. And some people cannot pinpoint why. You have a lot of people who don't understand why they're not happy in life. It's because they have been parasited, they have been invaded by a different spirit. And the thing is, people who seek to influence you, for the most part, don't do so because they have your best interest in mind. They do so because they can use you after that. If you infect someone with your spirit, like I did in my example, if you break their balance, if you steal their rhythm, what happens? You have data on them and you have information that helps you manipulate them and make you do your bindings, make you do what you want them to do. If you're not evil, if you're not the type of person who's going to actively try and seek it to do that, you should still research it, as Musashi says. Why? Because it helps you prevent that happening to you. So you can always keep your integrity and you can help people regain their integrity. For me, it's quite evident when I see someone who's being influenced and whose ideas are being replaced by someone else's. And I can sometimes try and help that person get that back. And in a world where the media is the biggest culprit of doing that, of injecting their spirit into yours, getting that ability to be strong through any situation and to always maintain your spirit is priceless. So thank you, Musashi, for your words of wisdom. We will keep studying that book until we are fully done with it. Thank you for watching. Have a good day.